All right, everybody, we're going to get started here.
Hey, don't lean on this.
If you're online, could you please mute yourself? I'm going to do my little script. All right, welcome to the June 26, 2025 Site Plan Review Committee Subgroup Meeting for the RiverHouse project. We will be holding a hybrid public meeting which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted July 7, 2022. Members of the SPRC subgroup for the RiverHouse project are participating both here in person and virtually through electronic means. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link provided on the SPRC webpage, the project webpage, the county's event calendar, and the email notification sent to SPRC email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in option for those who wish to use it. For our subgroup members joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during tonight's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you're called upon. Turn the sound off to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it is appropriate to turn it on in a moment. The Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active to serve two purposes and two purposes only: for SPRC group members who need technical assistance and for members of the public to add their names to the list for public comment, which will be taken at the end of the meeting. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion. Those who are planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public comment period. If subgroup members participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn on your video feed and raise the virtual hand in Teams. I will monitor the video feeds that are on as an indicator of who would like to speak. If subgroup members are participating via phone today without the video option, please announce your name and group you are representing in a moment, and I will verbally check in to see if you wish to be recognized, as you do not have the video feed option. For our members of the public who would like to provide feedback and comment, you will be called on to speak at the end of the meeting and will be allotted 2 to 3 minutes to speak on tonight's agenda, depending on how much time we have left. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have tonight. If you wish to speak, please enter your name in the meeting chat, or for virtual attendees, or provide your name with staff if in person. You will be added to the speakers list from there. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. Okay, so to get started, we'll go around the table and online, and everyone who's a member of the SPRC roster here will do a quick introduction. We'll start with me, and then we'll go around the table, and then we'll go online. My name is Tony Striner, and I'm chairing this SPRC from the Planning Commission.
Gary Shins, Robert.
Jeffrey Williams, Crystal Pentagon Cities Council.
Pamela Van Hine, Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Eric Castle, Crystal City Civic Association.
Chattery Garcia, Arlington Ridge Civic Association.
Sohail Hussain, Transportation Commission.
Nick Giacobbe, Aurora Highlands Civic Association.
Kedra Whitmore, I'm with Venable.
Bella St. John Day with Bradley Site Design.
Chris Fornash, Nelson Nygaard.
Jessica D with Pentagon Ridge Condo Association.
Jim Lantelme, Planning Commission.
Robert Gibson, Arlington County DES Transportation.
Adam Watson, Arlington County Planning.
All right, Commissioner Robertson, I see you back there. Do we have any other commissioners in the pews here? All right, no. Any commissioners or representing any groups for the SPRC online tonight?
We have at least 2.
Feel free to raise your hand, speak up, all that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on the phone, but Anika Montgomery for Housing Commission. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And this is Alyssa Tope, Arts Commission and Public Art Committee.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Last call.
Joe Trevette, C2E2.
Okay. Thank you for coming tonight, Joe. Shelby, you're on.
Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Shelby Pollock. I'm here representing YIMBYs of Nova.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. Okay. Got it. Thank you. All right. Is that everybody? We've done all the housekeeping. Okay. So we're going to kick it over to JVG Smith, who's going to give us a quick or a 15-minute max applicant presentation, and then we're going to go to staff, and then we will launch into the discussion from there.
Great. Thanks so much. My name is Kedrick Whitmore, and we're excited to bring you our proposal for the RiverHouse neighborhood. On the next slide, you'll see an overview of the topics that we'll discuss this evening. There it is. I won't go through them in detail here, but you'll see on the next slide, we have been at this for quite some time since the adoption of the sector plan back in 2022. So on the next slide, we wanted to start with some information about some changes that we've made in response to comments from this group and prior meetings. So on the next slide, you'll see at the last SPRC, we heard pretty clearly from folks that there was a desire for the townhomes along the southern property line to have a rear loaded garage, that would be preferred to a front loaded garage. This allows for a continuous streetscape in front of these townhomes, and we've made that change here, and you can see what that streetscape looks like on the slide here. You can see the various cross sections for different areas of 15th Road South. We provide a landscape buffer and driveway in the back, along with a green ribbon sidewalk and landscape buffer and a full streetscape and bike lane there in front of the townhomes. On the next slide are a couple of renderings to give you a sense of how that streetscape is going to look and feel. You can see the green space, you can see the uninterrupted areas in front of the townhomes. The next slide is the C1 building. We heard some comments at the last meeting that the architecture needed to have a little more variety and that there was a need to better define the base, middle, and the top of the building. In response, we've made a number of revisions to the architecture of the building, including refinement of the parapets and changes to the materials and colors to help set off this base, middle, and top area. You can see on the right side on the top, that's the previous facade. On the bottom is the new proposed facade. We've outlined the changes here, 1 through 7. I won't go through them in detail right now, but we're happy with how these revisions have really helped the building. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Belle to discuss the green ribbon.
Thank you, Ked. I am Belle St. John Day, and tonight I'll speak on the green network design found throughout RiverHouse, focusing on the green ribbon and open space. On the next slide, you can see the map presented in the Pentagon City Sector Plan showing the flexible placement of the green ribbon with key connections noted in the gray boxes. More than 3 miles of new walks is diagrammatically shown with approximately 1 mile of new paths indicated for the RiverHouse site. The design team created the section at the bottom right as a visual of the standard green ribbon profile as directed by the guidelines, with a typical overall width of 16 feet and a clear path ranging from 8 to 12 feet. On the next slide, you can see a diagram showing the full future RiverHouse green ribbon network with the key intersections and destinations from the previous map highlighted using blue circles. The placements have been adjusted per coordination and feedback heard thus far, along with utilizing creative solutions to provide ADA accessibility across the RiverHouse neighborhood. The design intent is to create clear connections to nature and native plant corridors through an inviting and safe experience. As we go to the next slide, you can see how the first phase of the green ribbon network can be realized with the delivery of the S and N1 buildings. Of the approximately 1 mile of green ribbon intended for the RiverHouse site, the community will get the benefit of most of these connections being realized in phase 1. Due to the size of the site and the significant length provided of green ribbon throughout the RiverHouse site, there are several typologies found. On this slide, you can see starting at the south end of the site, the secondary green ribbon placement along the front of the townhouses. So this is on the new Fifth Road looking west. The alignment along the townhouses provide a variable width path and tree planting strip to provide the organic form as described by the green ribbon design guidelines. Opportunities for path lighting and casual seating will be able to be accommodated with the variation in widths. This is a similar condition found along Kent Street, which currently shows 14 benches spaced throughout the length, and this will have a similar dimension. Periodic breaks in the bioretention planting are also included to meet the needs of access to the street. As we go to the next slide, you can see the condition of the green ribbon, the primary green ribbon at the 15th Street spur, where the 28 feet of grade change is accommodated with a wide staircase. The biophilic principles of the green ribbon are also met with splaying the accessible access ramp to nestle within native plantings and work with preserved tree canopy. Landings provide opportunities to capture the view towards Virginia Highlands Park. We have been exploring the additional 22 feet of grade change up to the intersection of South Lynn Street, but the ADA solution would not meet the principles of the green ribbon per the sector plan. The next slide shows a plan view of the interim condition is met utilizing existing pathways and creating or enhancing existing pathways where possible to provide the full 8-foot width and accessibility. As we go to the next slide, we move farther north into the site to explore the green ribbon typologies found in that area. This example here at the N1 interim space is subject to the park master plan process beginning shortly, showing a 35-foot of dimension for the green ribbon. With the 35 feet of dimension in the space, the green ribbon can be easily accommodated in the first phase to provide clear access, plantings, casual seating, and wayfinding. Going to the next slide, we are along the west property line looking south next to the N1 building and South Lynn to the right. The green ribbon pathway responds to the existing naturalized condition in this area with native plant palette, utilizing walls and freestanding benches for casual seating opportunities and pathway alignment organically laid out to preserve trees. The next slide shows how the green ribbon responds to tree preservation surfacing when the naturalized setting becomes more dense with existing trees to remain an extensive topography. This view is looking south again along the green ribbon near South Lynn Street at the corner of the new N1 building and looking behind the Potomac. You can also see a little bit of the access up to South Lynn for the bus stop on the right side of the screen. And now we're going to shift into the open space designated for the RiverHouse neighborhood. On the next slide, you can see the diagram indicating the 4+ acres prescribed for the RiverHouse by the Pentagon sector plan, the city sector plan. And the next slide shows how the full RiverHouse green network is being planned for with both the PDSP planned open spaces and utilizing the green ribbon to connect them. The next slide shows a focus on phase 1 with the delivery of nearly 75% of the green ribbon planned for the RiverHouse site and the interim condition found at N1. We zoom in on the next slide to the conceptual plan showing the interim condition that will be built with N1. Priority was given for the creation of the green ribbon in the first phase that is accessed through a universal design approach. The individual dooryards with associated circulation for the N1 residents is outside of the dedicated open space dimension, but increases activation and a sense of community that can be utilized to benefit the open space. Seating opportunities are woven throughout to promote rest, safety, and casual social interaction. This view shown at the top of the stairs from the west looking east towards West Post. Consider sightlines and view sheds are carefully considered for safety and orientation. Dooryards are areas, once again, are activating the space and supporting SEPTEB principles by keeping eyes on the space 24 hours. On the next slide, you can see the prescriptions laid out for the RiverHouse site for open space and green ribbon and how we are meeting those. I now welcome Chris to discuss transportation.
Thank you, Belle. So tonight we'll be talking about some of the transportation design elements of the proposed RiverHouse neighborhood. Here you see sector plan excerpts from the Pentagon City sector plan at the right and at the bottom. Highlights include changes to Joy Street that we're about to discuss in more detail, other multimodal infrastructure improvements, and more typical requirements for analysis and TDM. Next slide. This diagram shows the full PDSP and all the transportation elements delivered with it, including modified streets, as well as green ribbon and other pathways connecting within and through RiverHouse. The next slide gives more detail on streets and streetscape elements, including space for driving, for biking, for walking, and for natural elements. I recognize there's a lot on this slide, and we may want to come back to this in other slides later, but for now, I'm going to move along to the next slide, which focuses on transportation elements delivered with phase one, which of course is the 3 site plans. It's the same elements as on the previous slide, but noting that some of the interim improvements that Belle described as well. So on the next slide, you see the familiar Land Bay S view, which also includes transportation improvements to be delivered with site plan C1. Belle talked about the green ribbon and to some extent the streets, but I want to highlight the formalized connections both to Kent Street on the south and Lynn Street on the west, which were encouragements of the sector plan. On the next slide, we shift to building N1. The focus here is really on the transformation of Joyce Street. Site plan N1 delivers over a quarter mile of road diet on Joyce Street, including new protected cycle track, safer crossings due to lower vehicle speeds, and much shorter crossing distances. Starting with the next slide, we will be walking through some cross-section views of specific streets, starting at the bottom right of this diagram, which is Joyce Street, and then proceeding around to the left of this diagram. On the next slide, I'll spend a moment on this one just to orient you. So at the top right is the site plan view with an indication of where this segment of street occurs. So this is right in front of proposed building N1. And then in the middle diagram, you see the gold line indicating where this cross-section is drawn. Now I'm going to go from right to left across the cross-section at the bottom. On the right is the Westport side of the street, on the left, RiverHouse. So from right to left, you have the existing parking and painted bike lane plus 1 travel lane heading north, and then heading south, 2 travel lanes allowing for turns, and then a curb lane, which in this section adjacent to building N1 is proposed for pickup and drop-off use. And then there's a buffer before you get to the 2-way cycle track, and then finally the sidewalk, green elements with the sidewalk and building N1. The next picture is closer up to Army-Navy Drive. So again, from right to left in the section at the bottom, you see the existing parking and painted bike lane against the Westport side, plus 1 travel lane heading north. In this particular segment, we have 3 travel lanes heading south, allowing for left and right turns, and then a buffer again before the 2-way cycle track, and finally the sidewalk in front of the existing RiverHouse building. The next slide shows the relocated Little Joyce Street, as we call it, the segment of Joyce south of 15th Street, which is an element not of phase 1, but of the full PDSP. From right to left across the section, you see the expanded park space and then the proposed shared use path of ample width to accommodate people biking who choose to bike on the path, as well as people walking. Green elements, 1 vehicle travel lane in each direction. In this particular location adjacent to buildings, a proposed pickup drop-off space, and then green elements and the sidewalk against the building. The next slide shows even more information on one slide. This is 3 different sections along the proposed new 15th Road. Belle already talked about these at some length, but I'll just point out that in general, they contain 1 vehicle travel lane in each direction, plus in the 2 sections east of New Kent Street, bike lane, and then on both sides, green elements and sidewalks. On the next slide, you see the new Kent Street, so heading south on the left and north on the right. It also has 1 travel lane in each direction, plus green elements and sidewalks. The Loop Road, which is the far southwestern corner of the site, also proposed to have 1 vehicle lane in each direction, parking along one side, and green elements and sidewalks. The next slide shows parking and loading for building C. Actually, this is for Land Bay S. So this is just to highlight where the garage entrances are for the proposed townhomes. You see mostly rear loading garages, except for on the far southwestern corner, where due to topography, they're front loading garages. The next slide shows for building C1. This just again, orient coming from the bottom, heading up the drawing. We're going up the new 15th Road, and then you would turn right into a new access way or an improved access way that provides access to both the vehicle loading with the purplish arrow and then the vehicle access to the garage and then the truck loading and unloading. On the next slide for building N1, similarly, the access drive comes off of Joyce Street and then provides access to first the vehicle garage in building N1 and then the truck loading. Now, just in summary, I want to emphasize that phase one includes the delivery of nearly 3 acres of transformed Joy Street with that road diet that I described, which is actually more than the building footprint of building N1 itself. That includes 1,500 feet of bidirectional two-way cycle track. Phase one is also delivering over 3/4 of a mile of green ribbon, which is over 1.5 acres of green ribbon space. I believe that concludes our presentation.
All right, thank you very much. We'll turn it over to staff to give the other half of the presentations here. And then while we're loading that up, I want to focus tonight's discussion on our 3 agenda topics. The first we're going to be talking about is landscaping and biophilia. The second is the green ribbon and more of how it all flows with the site together, whether it achieves the goals outlined in the plan, all of that. And then third, we will talking about the streets and the streetscapes. Those are the bounds for what we will be primarily talking about tonight. So just putting that out there before we go back into the staff presentation, but I'll turn it over to the staff presentation now.
Thanks, Tony. And I'm just going to put another plug out there. We have, if you're in the room here and you want to speak during public comment, we do have a physical sign-up sheet up here, and just stop on by a little bit later if you didn't already sign up. And if you're online, please feel free to put your name in the chat, and we'll take your name down so that we have a speaker list put together for later. Okay, so thank you all again for being here this evening. My name is Adam Watson. I'm with Arlington County Planning, and I'm joined by Rob Gibson from Development Services and DES, who will also be helping me with this presentation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about process and next steps and some administrative things, talk about landscaping and tree canopy, the green ribbon, the townhouse area along the southern lot line, and then we'll have Rob speak to our streets, our streetscapes, and our PUDOs. Okay, so I think Kedrick covered the process well at the jump of their presentation. So we are here at June 26th. This is our SPRC number 4 meeting. We do plan to have one more SPRC meeting advertised for July 28th. So everybody, please make sure that's on your calendar. We'll send out more reminders, of course, before that meeting occurs. We'll be back here again in the county board room for that meeting, and online as well on Microsoft Teams. As Kedrick also mentioned, we are planning to launch a public spaces master plan process for the N1 into public space. And that process is going to focus on the design of both the interim and the final configuration of that public space between those 2 buildings. So for the purposes of tonight's discussion, please, let's direct your comments to that online engagement for that space. We anticipate it's going to open on June 30th and run through July 20th. However, everybody who is on the SPRC roster or already follows the RiverHouse project through our Gov delivery notices will get a notification about when that process goes live, and there'll be a project page for that as well. Just a side note that the other 2 public spaces that are proposed to come with RiverHouse PDSP overall will be planned via separate processes in the future. So that James Park on the far north side of the site up by Army Navy Drive would be planned through a similar process when we go through SPRC for the N2 building. And then there's actually already CIP funding for Virginia Highlands Park planning in the CIP to do that beginning in 2032. Last time there was some questions about the difference between what is a PDSP and what is a final site plan. And for those who remember our open house engagement 2 years ago, we talked about this, and it's good to talk about it again. So just a little bit of administrative explanation here that a PDSP, or a phase development site plan, is something that allows for a coordinated redevelopment of large sites. So when you have 20 acres or more, and it's a general plan for land uses, public spaces, facilities, transportation, and utilities. So it guides the final site plan proposals, the approvals, and the amendments. So it's sort of like the overall framework, right, for this large 36-acre site. It establishes the maximum total density. It establishes where the final site plan boundaries and areas are, and it also lays out what the community benefits framework is going to be in terms of which part of this puzzle is going to bring in what infrastructure and which community benefits. RiverHouse project is required to submit a PDSP. It's a recommendation of the Pentagon City Sector Plan, but it's actually also in our administrative regulations for accepting site plans. It's Admin Regs 4.1. So switching to the final site plan, this is where we get more specific. So you can think of it as, this puzzle metaphor of coloring in the piece, right? We're really getting into a lot more detail. It's the specific building and site design. It's the architecture, which improvements are going to come with it. What's the permit timing going to be for when things are delivered for a land bay or for a building within the PDSP? And so approval of the final site plan is required before the county can issue any building permit for either the PDSP project or any project part. And then lastly, typically these final site plans also expire in 3 years' time, unless they're a request to the county board to extend it or the Virginia General Assembly extends the validity. Okay, so I'm going to turn now to talking about landscaping and tree canopy. There are two major sort of objective criteria in the Pentagon City Sector Plan that cover this topic. The first is our building coverage, and the sector plan recommends, and that's on the left-hand side of the screen. The sector plan recommends that buildings take up no more than 55% of the overall PDSP site area from the 5th floor and below. And then when you're talking about above the 5th floor, it's 40%. And this is exclusive of any area that's going to be granted on a public access easement or a fee-dedicated park. So that means you got to net out the green ribbon, for instance, all of it. And I'm pleased to say that the proposal, is well within these thresholds. It's 47% building coverage for 5th floor and below, and 34% for above the 5th floor. So I'm pivoting now to talk about the box on the right-hand side, and this is our tree canopy, and there's sort of additive criteria here for the RiverHouse site. It's at least 20% tree canopy on site, 5% at or near grade vegetation, an additional 5% additional vegetation, which could be things like green roofs, and that gets you to a total of at least 30% tree canopy and vegetation on site. Again, exclusive of fee-dedicated park or public spaces. And so the applicant, when you add that all up, is at 45%, again, 15% over the minimum for RiverHouse. The note here on the bottom of the screen is for something for everybody to think about when they fill out that online engagement for the N1, N2 public space. The sector plan has a separate recommendation to try to achieve 40% tree canopy within these public spaces. So think about that as you're filling out your online engagement feedback form. Okay, so lastly, the sector plan talks about site edges and tree canopy zones around the site. It recommends that tree canopy should be preserved generally up to 60 feet from the western lot line and up to 40 feet from the southern lot line. And so what we're noting here are a few things where the proposal is deviating from what the sector plan is saying. So I'm going to start on the north side of the site. There's a pinch point up by the N1 building where we have 49 feet instead of 60 feet. The townhouses along the western lot line are about 32 feet from the lot line instead of 60. And then on the southern lot line, 38 feet, which is pretty close to the 40-foot recommendation. And my big caveat on the 40-foot thing along the southern lot line is that the sector plan wants, a 40-foot tree canopy buffer, development, a new street, a green ribbon. And I think we're acknowledging tonight that it's probably not possible to fit all of that in between where you have the existing Ashley building to remain in the southern lot line. And so knowing that, just please bear in mind the flexibility for what needs to occur in this very small space. And I'm going to talk about the green ribbon next. So the sector plan recommends a couple different courses of green ribbon through the RiverHouse site. And so I'm going to walk through those left to right here. So the first is the secondary route that runs parallel to 15th Road or 15th Street, as we're going to call it, and it connects you from the southern end of VHP up to the Hume School. The next segment is this primary one that gets you from Virginia Highlands Park to the 15th Street spur and has that unobstructed view shed and corridor So you can see from the 15th Street spur down to the park and vice versa. And then lastly, it's another secondary route that runs north-south or south-north, if you like, through the entirety of the site, parallel to Kent Street, and then all the way up to connect at the corner or the intersection of Lynn and Army Navy Drive. So the sector plan also has green ribbon design guidelines, and I'm just quoting here from the key quote on the cover page of the design guidelines. It says, "The most important design element of the green ribbon across all sites is the quality and the continuity of the connection, ensuring sight lines, the pathway, and the experience are continuous, easy to navigate, and visible." So it goes into much further detail on things like the pedestrian path widths and the planting zones, branding and wayfinding, tree canopy, planters, vertical elements, furnishings and refuges, and also lighting. So this is essentially the guidelines and the criteria against which staff is evaluating the developer's proposal for the green ribbon. So this is their overall green ribbon network. I think they did a great job walking through this. I'm just going to focus in on a couple areas where I've got some boxes here drawn or overlaid on this map. So again, the first one is our primary green ribbon route that runs from the 15th Street spur down to Virginia Highlands Park. So as Kedrick mentioned and Bell mentioned, there will be an interim treatment of this routing of this routing in this segment of the green ribbon until either the C2 or the C3 building is constructed, whichever one comes first. And so we've been working with them to make sure that there's a way in the interim to get you from Kent Street down to Virginia Highlands Park. And so this interim path includes both new and existing sidewalks that vary in width from 6 to 8 feet wide and connect you down to VHP. Overall, the final design that's shown here on the far right-hand side complies with our sector plan guidance, is much improved over the previous design or the previous proposal, given the resizing and the relocation of the C2 and the C3 building. And this final design definitely has adequate space to have casual use space and a separated bikeway through, which is shown in blue, as well as a green ribbon pathway. There's actually multiple segments of sidewalk through here. So overall, it's close to an acre in space, so it's a great improvement. One thing that has come up through SPRC in previous meetings, again, talking about the primary route here, and I'm focusing just on the segment from Kent Street west to the 15th Street spur. The way the applicant has proposed it, this does comply generally with the sector plan, as this is shown, is what is shown in the sector plan. However, we have heard from the SPRC concerns about the existing grade on the 15th Street spur and how one is going to connect up to it. And so what we've asked the applicant to do is to consider having, and this is what's shown in blue with my question mark, to consider having this end up on Lynn Street rather than on 15th Street, where there's quite a steep hill and having to put in new sidewalk there on the north side. So obviously we would need the applicant to study this, and we would need to consider what the trade-offs are, because there's a lot of tree canopy and there's a lot of changed topography here as well. So just something for the SPRC to consider tonight. Another area is along Kent Street. So this map here on the left-hand side is showing you where there are bioretention areas, and just mostly wanting to call your attention to the red shaded area, which is the bioretention areas that are along the green ribbon. So these areas don't meet the sector plan design guidelines for the green ribbon because they can't include refuge or furnishing areas because there's an edge treatment to them, right? They're not flush with the sidewalk level. There's a half-foot drop into them. And so our question to the applicant, question to the SPRC is, we don't want to throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater here. We definitely want street trees and everything else to be occurring along this segment. But is there a way to incorporate some of these green ribbon elements into these bioretention areas so that you have places to sit, places to be able to engage more with the plantings that are there? Last point on the green ribbon, and this bleeds into transportation and what Rob is going to talk about, and this is the Southern Townhouses area. And so, again, this is a slide from last time, just trying to illustrate again, what we're trying to do is to have these clear and obstructed sidewalks, standard landscaping strips where we know the trees are going to be healthy and they're going to survive, publicly visible path that has an unobstructed sight line, versus again having those driveways where you have a number of obstructions. And we've been working with the applicant closely since the last SPRC to get a new revised design on this, and I think we're really close, and we appreciate the applicant's efforts to work with us and to redesign this. It's much improved. That being said, there is one area where we think we need to continue to do a little more work, and that is making sure that the green ribbon path, again, talking about continuity and sightlines, could continue perhaps straight to connect to the ramp up to the Hume School, rather than having to take a couple 90-degree turns to get you there. We don't want it to sort of be hidden behind townhouses. We'd like to avoid that. We want everybody to know that this is a publicly accessible path and it's visible. You can see it. So again, this is something that we'd like to continue to work with JBG Smith on. Otherwise, we think we've made good progress in terms of, again, trying to accommodate all the things that we need down there: the street, the green ribbon, a buffer area, and also having ownership townhouse units as well. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob Gibson.
Thanks, Adam. Go. Oh, well, that is very washed out. Okay. So what this slide is showing is that along both the existing Joyce Street segments and along the new relocated Joyce Street segments, the project is proposing separated bike facilities, which the applicant has talked about. This goes towards meeting the goals of the sector plan and our master transportation plan. Both of those are going to provide two-way cycle tracks and a buffer for the street. One other point that I think we wanted to just highlight is that the project is delivering a number of new street segments with the project, and we are looking at it as a mix of both new public streets and new private streets. So the new public streets are going to be the relocated Joyce element, the new 15th Road segment up to Kent, and then the new Kent Street connection going from Lynn all the way to 15th. And then in the area where the townhouses are on the west side of the site, we have we're envisioning that would be a new private street, likely a court name, and that's kind of consistent with the type of use that you see there with the townhouses. And so along the new public streets, we'd be looking for the street to be delivered consistent with Arlington County standards. We, the county, would be maintaining the policing and the monitoring, the parking regulations, the street lights, and everything therein. And then on the private streets, the individual townhouse civic association would have maintenance responsibilities. Next. And then one of the other points that we wanted to highlight was with these new public streets, some of these streets will be providing on-street parking, and some segments still have a little bit of some room to look at. And so this plan shows the on-street parking that would be delivered along existing Joyce Street. It already has on-street parking, but would be modified and returned with the build out of the protected bikeway and the overall road diet along Joyce. And then New Joyce would also have on-street parking on one side of the street principally. And then as you go into the south side of the project and south and west sides of the project, 15th does not have any on-street parking between Joyce and Lynn, and then Lynn does not have any on-street parking between for its segment, but there is on-street parking on portions of 15th Court. And so one of the issues that we're continuing to work with the applicant on is how to deal with, we may not need on-street parking for the full lengths of 15th and Kent, but being able to deal with some short-term drop-off and pickup, looking at ways to do that. So that's one of the outstanding areas with the applicant that we're continuing to pursue. And I think that's it for us, but I would like to make a programming announcement that we are talking about the transportation elements kind of at a higher level. We're looking at the street cross sections. The applicant continues to work on a transportation assessment and analysis, which looks at the levels of service for all of the intersection and roadway links. That will be presented and discussed. That is an analysis that is based on the existing and proposed densities, the existing and projected future vehicle traffic in the area, and it gets down in kind of a pretty detailed level of, how each intersection is going to function, and it uses data which is industry standard data based on the uses, and then it also takes into account a pretty substantial amount of Arlington County data that we've presented in the 2202 studies and other things, so that the data and assumptions that are made are highly tailored to the area that we're studying. And so the applicant is continuing to address staff comments on that, finalize that. We didn't want to have a discussion about that while the applicant is being very responsive to staff. We wanted that information to be daylighted for the community and will be available at the next meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And I'm just going to chime in further and say, so in addition to this part 2 of our transportation discussion for next time, which includes the traffic, as well as our parking counts, proposed parking counts, also going to touch on community benefits and construction as well, and any other, I guess, project updates that will come out of this meeting. And so, Mr. Schreiner, that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the applicant, and thank you for everyone who's here tonight. We're gonna start talking now about our various elements here. So first up is going to be landscaping, tree canopy, and biophilia. So we'll open it up, and when any questions, comments, concerns you have, please direct them to staff or the applicant. I see a hand. Go right ahead.
So aggravated right now. I'm getting emails and texts from people who are on the phone watching this that are like, I can't follow this. Everybody's talking so fast. There's too much information. What are they talking about? We need clarity. I'm struggling to follow this. I'm really frustrated that all this information was published last night, maybe. I don't even know. I didn't get a notice. A neighbor sent it out. I was busy all day today. There's so much information here and no time to absorb it. So just for the record, and next week, parking's a big deal. I really hope that you guys, not next week, the next meeting, that you guys put the information out in a timely manner that allows us to actually read it and absorb it. So that just to start with, but I need some clarity. First of all, Belle, I think you mentioned about the bus stop on Lynn Street. There is no bus stop. There is a bus stop, but there is no bus that stops there. It has been gone for 2 years at least. I don't understand, I don't know why we don't know this. We don't track this. We don't account for this in our designs. There's literally no bus that stops there. So it would be great if we could figure out how to address that appropriately, because that could be green space. It doesn't make sense to have something in a plan that doesn't exist. Can you clarify what you said about, you said something about looking at the green ribbon on 15th up to Lynn, but ADA was not possible, but if it wasn't possible to follow ADA regulations.
If I could jump in, we're gonna get to the green ribbon, in more
Okay, so
detail.
this is just landscape.
This is
Sorry.
just landscaping, biophilia, tree canopy, anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So canopy, what's the deal with the 60 feet? How many times are we going to say that the county recommends 60 feet of canopy between the townhomes and the ridge, and nothing's going to change? So what is it going to take to change that or address that? Have we gotten any answers about the types of trees that are going to be put in? Are they fast growing trees? Or are you putting in 2-foot saplings that are going to take 20 years to fill in? Like, where are some of the details on that?
Do you guys want to speak, Kedrick, about the 60-foot?
Yeah, so I'll speak, I think, to both those issues. So the 60-foot dimension, the placement of the townhouses, both to meet the goals of density for the development and access for the roadways, cross-section required for fire access, sort of drives the placement of those townhouses. And so part of the coordination talking about that 60-foot dimension and coordinating with urban forestry is what we heard was the dimension was for the preservation of trees, but there are currently no existing trees along that section of the western lot line. And so to meet the goals of the sector plan, the 60-foot is for a preservation, but if there's no trees to preserve in that dimension, that we understood it per coordination that dimension is flexible. Talking about the trees going in though, Arlington County has a minimum of 2-inch caliper required for any trees going in on the site. So all the trees being placed as part of the canopy coverage are substantial at installation. So
How long is it going to take that tree that you're installing to hit 20 feet, 40 feet?
There's a range because we use a mix of both large deciduous trees and ornamental trees to get that full view shed of like layering of trees. But yeah, a 2-inch using an oak, for example, will be about 10 feet going in. And then the canopy calculations are done based on, I believe it was 15-year canopy. And so you get a pretty substantial tree quickly in that time frame.
And I'm sorry, did you just say that the 60-foot is a recommendation on saving something, but it doesn't exist, so that's why you don't think it needs to be 60 feet? Is that, I may have just mangled that, but that's what I think I heard.
Our understanding was we did a study of the existing trees and prioritizing the preservation of trees along that edge. In that current location where the townhouses are, there are no existing trees. So to make access work and the density work, that edge we understood to be flexible per coordination.
You in the hat, you first. I'm sorry, my name is not blinking on it.
Eric, thank you. Can you describe a little bit more about your landscaping philosophy overall? Because I think this is kind of a thing where when you hear these presentations, you always say, oh yeah, we're going to put lots of cool trees, but then you get it done and it doesn't meet what you expect. So can you give us some idea of what is your landscaping philosophy for this whole site and how you see it over time is developing? You know, what's your goal of trying to achieve?
For sure. Yeah, so our design aesthetic for the landscaping it's a native plant palette held to Arlington County standards. It's native tree species and native understory selections that really support the native pollinators in our area, birds, insects, other animals on the site. And so the intent is to really create this lush, naturalized setting across RiverHouse, especially with the direction that the green ribbon is supposed to be this biophilic experience. And so we really want to lean into that. It's a true biophilic experience that the plantings are supporting, doing a lot of layering. And so you have both understory supporting canopy, so you get overhead implementation of that immersion in nature throughout the site.
And
for example, what would you see as a average tree density? You know, how far apart do you expect the trees? You know, that type of thing. I'm trying to get some idea of what it'll look like.
And I don't know if this is going to be germane. I just did want to add with the nice and interesting part that Belle said. I'll say the very boring part, which is that the county's process is such that we're going to have a conceptual landscape plan approved with any site plan that may come forward, but that's going to continue to evolve into a final landscape plan with a deeper level of review, more specificity in terms of the plantings, in terms of the locations of those plantings. But Belle, I don't know if you had anything else to add based on that, but that may be the answer to the question, is that comes with the final landscape plan.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's just a lot of layers of reviews. And so, we're spacing trees apart to be respectful to understanding their full mature size as to not overcrowd in the future. but it's a very dense landscape that is anticipated out there.
You're next, and then Commissioner tell me.
That one's questionable. Are we open space is in this category we're talking about? Landscaping? Okay. This might
Throw it out there. We'll see.
Right, I'm going to do it. So one of the questions I have, right, on discussion of tree canopy is in that N1 building, right? I know we talked about like that the recommended is 60 feet and then the proposed is 49. So obviously there's going to be trees back there. There's going to be a green ribbon. I know from experience and walking by some of those kind of by the James and the Potomac, that width is, of course, very small to include everything there and the green ribbon. And so I wish there was some way that could be expanded. I know it's challenging with the building footprint, but that was something I wanted to ask if that was a reasonable, I guess, option. First question.
We could take a look at that.
Okay. And then second question is when will that, I know we talked about the park process for the area between N1 and N2. Will there be a process that will occur for that interim area as well?
Are you referring to the open space between N1 and N2?
Yeah, I know we talked earlier that the staff mentioned that the larger open space survey would go out, but I'm curious, will there be a public process for that interim space that will occur before the whole build out?
So I'm sure staff may want to add to this, but the process that's referenced here will include both the interim space for N1 as well as that total larger space in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right, Commissioner tell me you're on.
Thank you. I walked this a while ago, and I'm looking at the western edge by the townhouses with the 60-foot theoretical buffer, which will be 38. Last time I walked that, I seem to recall that there was, and I came to it from Aurora Highlands, and there's a street that sort of ends, but clearly something continues on. There's power lines, and I think there was a power line easement, and it was just grass underneath. And I think there's houses up on Arlington Ridge Road, which at some point, their property line ends. I'm not sure where that is. But that power line area looks like it's permanent. Is that a private easement that the power company has? You can't build under it, and you can't have trees under it because those power lines have to be there. Isn't that effectively a buffer, even if it's not part of this property? Because the houses that are up the ridge, I don't think their property lines go down that far. Or if they do, there's clearly some sort of restrictions because it's just, there's nothing there, nothing planted. Could we get information about that? Because I'm way more comfortable with 38 feet if there is effectively a buffer anyway along that edge that will continue on there. And I think I'd rather have houses than a buffer when there's already a buffer. That's sort of where I'm coming from. Sure. So that's sort of a clarifying question that doesn't have to be answered today, but I would like information on that.
Yeah, I would like to jump in and second that, understanding if those could be buried and if that could be expanded to kind of connect that whole area, I think would be useful.
So we'll come back and clarify whether that's simply a utilities easement or some other unbuilt right of way. And then I think that depending on different things, utilities have to have a home. And so we'll consider everything you've said in the response, but I do think that, and there are different types of utilities that are out there. We've heard questions this week about Dominion's system and overall capacity and how this project would affect that. And so we'll also look into what type of utilities those specifically are. So are those like high voltage transmission versus like just a neighborhood serving line, and just give a little more context to it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, Rob, just a cursory check here. It looks like, some of that area, Jim, is probably county, like abandoned right of way. Some of it looks to be like private property, like the rear of folks' backyards where maybe there's an easement for the power line. So we'll look into it further.
Right, because when I approached it, it looked like the street could have continued but didn't. So I figured there has to be some sort of right of way.
I'm pretty sure it is an unbuilt right of way, which means it is totally open for utilities. It just doesn't have a street in it. And to some extent, when we talk about that little switchback that is at the end of proposed 15th Street, that would tie into the otherwise public right of way in that area you're talking about, and how to create that connection from using that right of way back to the community is also something we've heard about. Don't build a set of stairs there that doesn't fill the gap to get you back into the community.
Yeah, just to clarify, that's the back of the Hume School. So, yeah.
Last house and Pentagon Ridge that connect from Ridge Road down to whatever that is. I think that's where it connects. So,
Okay, we're going to do 2 more comments on this topic. You first, and then you, and I asked to make them quick if you can. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I want to talk a little bit about Joyce and Kent Street. Joyce Street, people seem to have forgotten, but that street was narrowed a couple of years ago. It was a multi-million-dollar project, and it was done to reduce traffic and to force cars to go slower. And it was significantly narrowed. So my question is, how is it going to accommodate cycling? I think you said on both sides of the street, all this density, and who's going to pay for that? Since we as taxpayers just paid to have it narrowed not that long ago. So that was one comment I wanted to make. I want to understand who's going to pay and how it's going to happen. And then Kent Street is even worse. You have parking on both sides of Kent Street from 16th Street, which hits RiverHouse, all the way to 23rd Street. It's very narrow. It's a neighborhood street. Cars park right now on both sides of the street. You have overflow from RiverHouse parking at night because the RiverHouse parking residents do not want to pay for parking in RiverHouse. So though they have cars, they park on these side streets on Kent Street at night. So I want to make sure everybody's aware of that, because I seem to hear, oh, we looked at it, the parking is fine, traffic is fine. I don't know what time you're looking at it. Kent Street is bumper to bumper at night with parking on both sides of the street. Thank you.
So just a point of clarification, the new segment of Joy Street will be fully rebuilt so that the open spaces can be consolidated with the park. And so that would be rebuilt with the future phases as the phasing plan talks about. And the cycling would be, the cycle track is sidewalk grade, so it doesn't mix with the vehicle traffic.
All right. We got one more on the landscaping question.
Okay, I'll make this quick.
Yeah, just to say that one more time and more clearly, it is built with and paid for by the development.
Okay.
Okay, sorry if this gets too much down into the weeds, but there are a lot of non-native invasive plants along the western border adjoining Lynn Street, and I wonder if there's any plan to address that.
Yes, we have very much been following the development of and growth of that invasive plant habitat now that currently is on the west lot line. So we're working with urban forestry to develop a plan for management of that, as the development team is going to make a substantial contribution investment in that edge. We don't want it overtaken with invasives. So something we're still working with urban forestry on.
Okay, that sounds great. And I'm with the Arlington Regional Master Naturalist also, and we do a lot of non-native invasive removal work on a volunteer basis, and I would be happy to get a group together to assist you.
Making deals here. Okay. So if you have any more questions or comments to add on landscaping, tree canopy biophilia, please send them to staff. We just don't have enough time to keep going. So we're going to move on to green ribbon. and the connectivity of it, how it's structured, how it flows through the property, that kind of thing. Pam, I saw you first.
Thank you very much. I have questions about 3 segments of the green ribbons. The first is the interesting proposal to shift the western section a little bit over to connect to Lynn rather than going through the parking lot and stuff. What are the implications of that? Did I hear you say that you would be building some new sidewalk along Lynn as well? That'd be great. What is the slope like there? I assume it's not that much better than the other slope. And because you'd be gaining a little more space, is there any way that you can create some more room for the very cramped townhomes? So that's one question. My second question is about the temporary route that goes, I guess, from Kent to Joyce through the parking lot. And that is a temporary condition that might be there for a very long time. It would be great if you could figure out how to green that up. Walking through parking lots, especially in the summer, is not pleasant. So please think about that. And my final comment is about the connection to the Hume School. And please figure out how to do that in a very direct way. What is shown on the slide makes no sense. One of the key points for green ribbons is they should be obviously visible. And you shouldn't need wayfinding signs to find them. So you can't really hide them behind buildings. And that's it. Thank you.
We're gonna go him first, and then Commissioner Tomi. Sure. Yeah. If y'all have anything to add, by all means.
Sorry, I was going to ask you, that was your first question was related. Can you repeat that one, please, on the 15th Street?
The current plan goes straight up. And there's a proposal to think about shifting it to the west a little bit and connecting to Lynn without going by the development up there. And what are the implications of that? What is the slope of that? I thought I heard somebody say you might be building sidewalk on Lynn. That would be wonderful. And the final part of that was if you could use some of the new space to create more room for the townhomes.
So clarification. So you're asking about the exploration of connecting up to Southland versus the base of the spur. Okay. So we have been studying it. It's an additional 22 feet of grade change. So we're already making one grade change of 28 feet from Kent Street up to the base of the spur. The additional 22 feet of grade change takes almost 460 feet of additional ramp. And to accommodate, the total 50 feet of grade change would eliminate over 12 trees, healthy trees in that space. It would likely create a sheer wall, and it really starts deviating from the guidance of the sector plan for creating this biophilic experience.
And I just add, we're really pretty excited about this space and the green elements here. This is, y'all may remember, there was a condo building here at one point, and part of the ask was, hey, can you eliminate that and create some new green and open space that's not necessarily called for in the sector plan, but will be a good amenity and piece of this site.
And I forgot to add, what is the impact on the view sheds? Shifting it.
Of connecting up?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think Bell would probably confirm that there would be significant ramping that would impact the view shed if we had to do that.
Yes, go right ahead.
First question, when you're going through this green ribbon in this thing, is there any wayfinding that you're going to have? I know the bid was supposed to be working a long time ago on wayfinding, and how will you know you're on the green ribbon?
So the first way to hopefully know is to have the green ribbon be straight and intuitive, and that's something we're continuing to work with staff on to ensure that that's the case throughout. The county sign ordinance does make wayfinding signage very difficult. Freestanding signage is basically prohibited in most cases. So this is something we'd have to work with the county about to have that sort of thing included.
Yeah, we're gonna. I was just gonna weigh in for staff side of it. I mean, yeah, we're going to be continuing to work with JBG Smith on wayfinding because there are things besides freestanding signage. There's, there's markers in the ground. There's other things that can be done that are recommended in the guidelines. But it's a very good point, and we'll continue to work.
I mean, I would really suggest that maybe the county waive some regulations to put up some signs that say, here's the green ribbon and a map, and here's where you are now. Parks have those signs that show you, essentially where you are on the map and, where you can go. And so I would really think that that would be inappropriate to have series of standing alone signs at various places to tell people where they are, where they can go, and where the green ribbon is. So
100%. Staff wants that to be very clear, and we're going to be working. I don't know that all the provisions of the sign ordinance apply here, so we're just going to need to work more closely with them. But we absolutely want signage, and we would like wayfinding, whether that's in the ground signs, whatever have you. So we'll continue to work on that. Point well taken. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go. Krishna, tell me first. Did you have a comment? And then Peterson,
Yeah.
you, and then we're gonna go here. And then we'll go here and here.
Yeah.
See if I can remember that.
A couple of green,
go ahead.
A couple of green ribbon comments. First of all, I think we did make the right call in shifting the southern green ribbon from behind the townhouses to the front of the townhouses, because seeing the render, it really makes total sense. I think that was the right call. The comments, I noticed we have concerns about the green ribbon and having the bioretention running along it. That strikes me more of a design issue than a really detailed design issue, because they should be very compatible. But I've seen bioretention facilities that are really biophilic, with pollinator plants, lots of green. There's certainly ways to put almost a little bridge over with benches. That should not be an issue. The grade difference should not be an issue. It's really more of a design thing. And I'm pretty confident that you have very talented landscape people that can do that. There are bioretention along, I think it's 20th Street in DC, which they're really good looking. They really contribute to the streetscape there tremendously well. So I would encourage you, I see nothing incompatible with having these bioretention running along the green ribbon. If anything, I think it's a feature, and we should exploit that. So thank you.
And just to comment about that, I think the challenge is more that there's a lot being promised within the bioretention. We support the biophilic nature of it. We also have to address canopy trees and other things. Some of those elements we have found to be more challenged in the bioretention areas. So we want to make sure that what is promised is delivered. And so if we are thinking that this is a space that is going to have the types of tree plantings that are associated with bioretention areas, that's great. But if we're also saying that it's going to be a street tree canopy area with the rhythm and type of street trees that you would see, that may not be what we get to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure DC had the street trees along those. So anyway, there are precedent, I think, for it. No, I know it's going to be, but that's why I say it's a design issue. So it should be able to be done in some way.
Yeah, Commissioner Peterson, I'm gonna kick it down to you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So I was hoping you could go over again what the rationale was for moving the 15th Street connection to Lynn Street. So that's the first issue. Second, I very strongly agree with you all that we should not do those 90-degree turns and have the green ribbon go behind the townhouses. So please stand firm on that, staff, as you're continuing the negotiations. And then also, I had questions about the branding of the green ribbon as well. I know the sidewalk treatment could be an important part of it. I was interested in who is going to maintain that, because that beautiful treatment will probably be very expensive. Would it be possible to repeat that treatment 10 years on if some of the sidewalk was damaged? And, if it was like, a special kind of stamp that was put in the street, are we going to be able to get that stamp again so that we can keep that consistent look into the future? And I know in the past we've had really cute, quaint sidewalk treatments around Arlington, and then we found out that they were very expensive to maintain. So then we said, okay, we're going to stop that. we're going to go back to traditional concrete sidewalks. And so, you know, there's like an ebb and flow of whether or not we like or dislike the cute sidewalks. And are we going to be able to maintain that and keep that up? And would it be a minor site plan or a major site plan amendment if 10 years from now it is very expensive to maintain those charming sidewalks? And so the applicant says, we don't want to do that anymore. We just want to replace it with unattractive cement.
So I think the first question that you asked was about that connection, rather than going to 15th, going up to Kent. The way that we have, I'm sorry, Lynn, thank you. The way we've partially looked at this is we've seen that there's a lot of tree canopy in there, but we've also seen that there's a lot of invasives. So that slope is something that needs to be maintained. We also have heard that just getting people to the bottom of 15th does not really function from an ADA perspective. It is not, it's a very steep slope. And so there have been questions in the community about and pointing out that you may create an ADA accessible point to the end of 15th, but you aren't getting people to where the rest of the accessible public network is. And so that's part of why we're thinking about that shift. So I think what we're going to hear is what we're going to do is we're going to listen to what we hear today. I would say for the community and people that are providing input, there are two classes of green ribbon. And so do we need to have the same thing for the primary and secondary green ribbons? That type of input is very useful. And then I would say that the places that are more sidewalk, we like to keep in concrete. There are exceptions that are made, and this is a process that we listen and respond.
Okay, you're on up.
It's my understanding that I've both got good news and bad news just in the last like 10 minutes, and that the county has acknowledged the 20 times I've said that bringing the green ribbon to the base of 15th Street doesn't make sense. But then it sounds like Belle just said, and yet there's nothing we can do about that because we can't make it accessible without getting rid of a lot of green space and 12 fully grown trees. Is that what I heard? So where does that leave us? Because I still think it's a really bad, she just said they can't do it. You've finally acknowledged that maybe we have a point, that it's a bad idea. So where does that leave us? I don't want to get rid of 12 fully grown trees, but have we gone along like the Kent Street thing? Have we maybe looked at just that not being the central point of the green ribbon because there's already a stairway up the center, or there's the Hume School, or there's Army Navy, that I don't even know what to say at this point.
I think that what you're hearing from the applicant is that they are concerned about the removal of existing tree canopy and whether that meets the goals of the plan. This process, we're able to provide input on our goals and priorities. So we're going to listen to the community about goals and priorities when it relates to that and help put recommendations forward after this point, right?
All right, we'll move on to you next.
Yes, so related to green ribbon, I agree with the townhomes going up to the Hume stairs, that should be direct line of sight. I remember during the LRPC walk that I mentioned that it would be nice to get actually ramping of some sort to get up to the Hume School. But because it's outside of the scope, because of the property ownership, that was deferred. But I would like to kind of put it on the radar again. Those steps are pretty decrepit, and I don't think it's very attractive to have that kind of fence next to you, and I'm not sure it makes sense to actually just repair those stairs and call that the connection. So this is more of a county request. On the 60-foot buffer, I don't remember, that's on the western edge, and we talked about that near the end ones and also behind the townhomes. I will say that I walked behind the townhomes, and I do remember that you've got a grassy, steep slope with those utility lines. And so was the purpose of the buffer was it just put along the entire boundary, or did they consider different segments of the boundary? You do get some vertical separation significantly between the townhomes. So if you're up on the ridge, will you be looking out over the townhomes? So you're not going to be basically kind of looking in someone's back doors. Do you get better separation that way? Then on the N1 building where it's not the 60 feet, it's the 49 feet. I will say I looked at the applicant's image and it did feel tight there. And part of it was if you felt like you were close to the N1 building, and then there was also a retaining wall in order to keep the slope. And you feel a little bit squeezed there. Now, maybe that opens up a little bit, but I looked at that and I said, yeah, that feels a little tight. So just an observation. On wayfinding, I used to hike a lot, and what I remembered is when you had a trail intersection, you kind of wanted to say this way or that way. So I think that looking at where the green ribbon intersections are would be a good place to do the wayfinding, and maybe that's where you do your branded thing. And of course, the cost of kind of putting stuff in the ground that's hard to maintain, but I thought a compass rose that has north, south, east, west, because nobody can remember what direction you're going. And if you've got those, and then say Lynn this way, Kent that way, it could start to provide that kind of, what do you do? I'm at a place where I can go 3 different directions. And so maybe that starts to inform about where we do our placemaking and wayfinding. That's all I've got for the moment.
Thank you. Nick, I'm gonna kick it over to you now. One of those has to work.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start, most of my comments have already been covered, but I want to align myself with Commissioner Lentelme's point that I really think there is compatibility between the green ribbon and the bioretention areas, especially in the townhouse area. But want to comment on something that Adam said during his presentation about that area is the areas of respite. And I think we're talking about the townhouse area as a private court, and they're kind of, it's a much more intimate residential area. And I'm not sure that we want to have areas with, with benches and tables in front of people's private homes. Maybe if we can put those on the corners or something, I think that we need to look at how those areas are designed and following the guidelines, and yet looking at the actual use of the housing in that area. Thanks.
All right. And you're the last one in the sequence, right?
I was.
Okay.
All
I
right.
see you,
Last but not least.
I don't have enough time to go into but we're going to move to sidewalks after this. Please go. Certainly, last but not least.
I'll touch a little on sidewalks too, just to foreshadow.
Love a good segue. That's perfect.
So just really quickly, again, back to the Hume stairs, as Jeffrey noted, I do think and agree that if possible, I guess the question would be, is that going to be possible to straighten out that green ribbon? And then I think kind of leading into the next meeting where we talk about community benefits, I would be interested in understanding if improvements of that area and connecting the street as well as those Hume stairs and potentially improving, accessibility up to Arlington Ridge could be considered a community benefit. I also do agree that the realignment of the townhouse driveways to the back, sounds great, or that exits the garages. I am concerned, though, when I look at the rendering and kind of to Nick's point, it seems like as you would be walking down that green ribbon, you're right in front of the doorways of people. And I know that one of the big goals of the Pentagon City Sector Plan was to create this stoop culture, this place where people could hang out. And all you have is this itty bitty kind of like entryway where someone's going to go in, and are they going to want to hang out in their front area? Are they going to want to talk with their neighbors? I kind of was curious if there's a way to bring kind of some of that more neighborhood feel to that area. I don't know if it means actually moving, because you don't want the benches to be that person's bench, but how do you, create that feeling that that's someone's area, it's their yard, they're going to invite their neighbors over. And I didn't really see that in the rendering. And I think the green ribbon there, while great, makes that challenging as well.
Any comments from staff, developer? Okay. All right. Well, in that case, we will move on to streets and streetscapes. This includes sidewalks, bike lanes, Prudo, street parking, all those things. So yep, I figured I figured you want to weigh in here.
I'm keeping it simple. I would like further details on why the one section is private streets and the other is public streets, and what are the implications of that? I thought I heard that the homeowners association would have to be responsible for the private street, and that means snow removal and garbage and everything else. And so how do you keep people off of your private streets? And does that include bicyclists and pedestrians, or are we allowed to roam freely? Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? We may not get back around to you, so
No, that's it.
put everything out there.
That was my big one.
Perfect. Let me respond to that. When I say private streets, I mean the ownership and maintenance responsibility is the homeowners association. We would have public access easements for the sidewalks and the streets through that area. So it would, from the surface, you likely would not notice any difference as a member of the community.
So this may be something we need to take up at the next meeting, because I stumbled across it looking at the street cross sections. But in front of the James building where the road diet is, and you're going to constrain the southbound joist to one lane. I regularly walk to my Harris Teeter. I live in the James building, and there is a queue of 2 to 3 cars wanting to make a left-hand turn into the Harris Teeter parking lot there. And if it's one lane, that traffic is going to back up towards Army Navy Drive. And if the thought is that they're supposed to go down to the next intersection and enter the lot that way, that's going to make it kind of harder to get to Harris Teeter and where people normally go. And I really think you need to have a 3-car queuing left-hand turn lane there. But if I look at it, the way you've got the roads going, you have to actually work that all the way back to the intersection in the exit of the James drive-through. But I really think you should look at that. I think that's a problem. One of the reasons it came to mind was that the Harris Teeter closed down in Potomac Yard, and they said parking and finding your way there and figuring out how to get to the store caused traffic to go down. We don't want to lose another grocery store because we've made it harder for people to get there. And visiting a grocery store is one thing that people are mostly not going to do walking. If they live any distance, they're going to drive there. So I want to just kind of throw that up as something that the transportation folks should look at.
Any comments, questions?
We will address that at the next meeting.
All right. So Hal, you're
Thank
on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just have 2 clarifying questions. One is, you may have touched on this already. What separates the bike lane from the street? Like, is it going to be bollards? Is it going to be like completely grade separated? That's one question. And then the second question is, so I noticed that there are bike lanes between Joyce and Kent Street. And I'm wondering if there are also bike lanes on the, like, so the public streets are that other section of Joyce and then that section on top on Kent Street. Are there bike lanes on those as well? And because I don't think I saw them. If not, is there a reason? Is there a reason why there are no bike lanes? That's good. Thank you.
So on Joyce, both existing Joyce and new Joyce, that'll be a cycle track. It will have a planted buffer between the street and the bike facilities. On 15th and Kent, both the sector plan, the MTP look at those as low volume roadways. And so when we were looking, this plan looks at an uphill bike lane and a shared, and then they would have a shared downhill element. And so that is one option. We are also looking at innovations in low volume bike facilities for streets like this. So DC has implemented permissive bike lanes, and this creates a marked bike lane on both sides of the street. there are skip lines, and it creates almost a yield condition in the roadway. And DC is reporting really good feedback as far as that helping to narrow the roadway and also providing lanes for bikes, but it's providing speed improvements and other things while meeting a lot of goals. So part of this is what we can do within the striping area. That may change over time.
So just to clarify on what you were just talking about, was that in reference specifically to Joyce Street that you would consider doing the striping for the bike lane?
That would be for the new 15th
Okay.
and the Kent Street segments along the townhouse areas where those are going to be principally lower volume streets.
Okay, because yeah, I had a very similar question. I was unclear why you had this very specific bike lane between Kent and Joyce, but it didn't start anywhere and it didn't go anywhere. So what was really the point of that really clear bike area when it didn't connect? And then I think, and maybe it's just the coloring was confusing, and this is on slide 28 of I think the applicant's package. There is the coloring on Joyce Street. It's very hard to tell. You go from, I think, on-street bike lanes, or no, protected bike lanes, and then back to just striped lanes. And so you have striped lanes on Army Navy, protected on part of Joyce, and then maybe back to striped. I just felt like there's a lot of inconsistency across the whole site and the way that bikes would navigate. And I thought that would had potential to be very confusing. And I wondered if there's a way to kind of, I guess, improve it.
I think you're really hitting on both.
For next week.
No, actually, this is probably more of a understanding the things that are being showing, and also the challenges that we will see as a community.
Okay.
These are new protected bike facilities along the frontage of this project. That provides two ways, largely on the page north side of this drawing. But our existing network are separated on-street bike lanes, one on each side of the street for Joyce 15th. And so we have to finish that gap as a community outside of this process from the terminus that this project has to 15th Street and Hayes. Hayes, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think kind of on that same note, and this I do think is a next week question, as you're looking at finishing the rest of the network and kind of area beyond this development, Kent Street and Joyce, as that we now have more traffic going through there, those are already areas that have where you have lots of kids walking to school. And so really, like, if in the transportation study, you all can look at that closely, I think we would really appreciate it.
Yes, over there. Can someone hand her a microphone? One of the operational ones, preferably.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to echo Jeffrey Williams' concern about making Joyce one lane. I don't think that's realistic. It's a major road right now. It leads to the Harris Teeter, but it leads to all of West Post, and it backs up. It's 2 lanes on each side, and it backs up right now. So I don't think that would be realistic. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Any others? Okay, yes, I see from he's public comment, sorry. Anyone else here in the room and online who's a member of the SPRC who'd like to weigh in on this topic? Okay. Well, I'm going to do something a little crazy here. We've got about 5 minutes before I want to start public comment. So if there are any other closing thoughts, questions okay. I figured it'd be a few. Make them quick, and we can get through a lot of people here. So I saw your hand go up first. Okay, I saw a flurry of other hands here. So who is? Thank you. Okay. Sahel first. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if this is the right question for this week or next time, but I heard something about a bus stop. Can I ask about that here?
Go
or
right ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Is that something that like is that a part of the project, like redoing that? Like I wonder if you guys just could talk more about that. Yeah.
Just to say what we are hearing from that. One, we are understanding, we know that bus stop does not serve a community right now because there's no bus. That is on Lynn Street, right? And so I think some of the other part of this that we're talking about among staff is, are there things that need to be done to address the way the edge of this project integrates with the edge of the community? This may not be the only place that has to be addressed. And so I kick it over to Chris to speak more broadly about things they're looking
I
at.
think that's probably the one you were asking about was Lynn Street, where, as you pointed out, there hasn't been bus service for 2 years. Just pointing out that on Joy Street, there is significant bus service, and part of the reconstruction of Joy Street there, along with building N1, would be improving the bus stop, shelter, et cetera.
Doing bus shelters? Yeah, sorry. Just as a, like I've noticed before, like with bus shelters, just making sure that like they're covered and all that kind of thing. Cause I think yeah. So I just want some clarifying. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Here and here, and then that's all we've got for time.
I just as a final comment, I think there is some conflict, if you will, between ADA accessible and green space and things like that. And I think those are important issues that the community has to look at, how those trade-offs occur. And, you don't want to hurt, have people not be accessible. But on the other hand, there can be, green space effects that are just too big. So, I mean, it's a really hard question. And I think that's one of the questions that's useful to maybe do something more to explore.
So this is actually related, and it has to do with ADA accessibility. And is it possible, and do we have an ADA accessible method that goes through the N1 and N2? We've got the ramping that goes up, and then there's ramping that heads up to Lynn. Can that be made ADA the whole way? Because you have that longer way to get up there. And we recognize that because of the topography of the 15th Street, the cost to put ADA in there, the trade-offs aren't worth it. I would just suggest that be looked at as the way to achieve ADA to Lynn.
All right, thank you. All right, so I think that puts us right on time for some public comment. We'll start in person first. Where are we sending them to speak here? Are we directing people to go over there, or? I'm assuming.
Unfortunately, there's no microphone on the podium, so people will raise their hand. Maybe we can bring you one of our
hand-delivered microphone.
Donahue microphones. So we have John Steele as our first public speaker, followed by Paul Akers.
2 minutes apiece.
You ready for me to speak? Go ahead. All right.
Proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. John Steele. I live on 16th Street, on the very other side of RiverHouse. Just a couple of quick questions. And first, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Please confirm that the townhomes are 4 stories and they will not go above 4 stories. Can anyone? I'm seeing a nodding head over here. That's a yes. I'm looking at you. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. And then the timing and opportunity to engage, it could be you all at JBG or someone else, as to for the larger community, the quality of life during the construction, what we're most concerned about, the dump trucks, the litter, et cetera. Just speak to the timing. I don't want to get ahead of the county process. I could have side conversations with you all. So that's it. Great. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. We have somebody by the last name of Akers.
And if we can get this next person, we'll queue up 2 in a row.
David Ozgo. And then last call for Acres. Going once. Oh,
Okay, we'll come back.
is he in the bathroom or something? We can come get him later. Okay, got it. Well, we'll keep an eye out for Mr. Akers here. But David, your floor is yours.
Thank you so much. First off, I appreciate everybody's time. I know you all are very, very busy, and I appreciate the fact that you're out here. David Osgo, and I live on 18th Street for the past 30 some odd years. And I'd like to address, we've looked at transportation planning, and we just discussed the transportation plan, but as of the last meeting, when somebody asks the planners, well, how many people are going to be in this new area? The answer is, well, we don't know, which seems like a pretty critical question. So I want to make certain that we have determined how many people live there or will be living there in the future, because otherwise you cannot make a transportation plan and everything you've done is not particularly useful. Secondly, I want to address the concerns of the nearby areas. Right now, Joyce Street between about 16th and 23rd, it's like working a Rubik's Cube trying to drive down it. It's already very, very crowded. And, I realize there's going to be more people living nearby, but we really need to address the density. And it's, the talk about 22-story buildings is just incredible. And I have a hard time believing that anybody would actually want that. It's great. I know you're trying to address the future needs of the county, but those are people that don't live here. And given the way Washington, D.C. might be going right now, they might never be living here. So let's be certain that we address the concerns of the people that do live here now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Susan Castoria, oh, and then followed by Doug Ludwig.
Hi. So I do feel like we are really not being heard and that we are planning in a vacuum. Like we keep seeing renderings from the same directions looking up. We never see them looking down from the ridge. What are we going to be seeing looking down from the ridge, particularly when we're talking about Pentagon Ridge and you're trying to say, well, we're going to put the green ribbon access point there, but it won't be ADA compliant and it won't be easy. And maybe we can't put it exactly there. Like, why are we still orienting everything to something that we know doesn't work, that we've all acknowledged doesn't work? Why can't we move it and then see a view from here's what it would look like here, but if we move it, here's what it would look like from this area? We talked a lot about traffic, so I'm not going to repeat that, but I really do want to see a coordinated plan with all phases all at once talked about, because we can't really think about this in a vacuum and thinking about, well, we're just going to talk about tree canopy now and then other parts later. Doesn't make sense. Yes, I want to hear about the tree canopy, but I want to hear how it will grow. I think I heard over 15 years. Is that what you said earlier? So 15 years is not a very short period of time. So that means there's at least 14 years where it's not going to be a lot of tree canopy. What do we think of in phases? Can we see time renderings in phases so we actually know what we're getting into? And can we see it across the board for all phases of planning, not just one building at a time or one segment at a time? Thank you.
Thank you. Doug
Ludwig.
Doug Ludwig, followed by Robin J. Frank.
That's good. We're convenient. So my concerns really are the transportation plan. Many people have talked about it today inside the development site. But as somebody who drives down up, I usually park on 15th Street every day and drive on South Arlington Ridge Road. That road is horrible. The site, as you come out of there, the two intersections there are totally dangerous. It's almost like a hope for the best, just due to the way those intersections are designed now. And if you add any more people and or bicycle and pedestrian traffic, I think the safety concerns, especially because of the line of sight off 15th Street and to the left towards South Arlington Ridge Road, you just can't, because of the both the slope and the building, you can't see. And take your life in your own hands every time you turn onto that road. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got Robin J. Frank, followed by Matthew Kowalik.
Okay. We didn't plan it this way, but you have three Pentagon Ridge people in a row. I'm Robin Frank. I agree with both of my neighbors said, and I won't repeat it because I know we're eager to get done, but I will add my angle, which is that, I'm a 65-year-old old lady, and it was very hard. I bought last November and moved in January, and I've been reading your stuff since I moved in, and it was really hard to find. I started out with a nice one-page set of notes for today, but then after I heard the different remarks and read some of the stuff that came out late last night, it got even more confused. I think we do need more hearings and more time. There's a lot of issues that haven't been addressed yet. I'm 65. I moved to this neighborhood on Pentagon Ridge to age in place. I know I have several neighbors who are trying to do the same thing. And with some of the way these plans are being discussed, it's going to be very difficult to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We got Matthew Kowalik, followed by Abigail Ernst.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Kowalik. I live in RiverHouse. I'm excited to see the community grow. Actually, the density, that's pretty cool, being that I'm a pretty out and out YIMBY. Some of you people know density is great. And actually, I would say, I like where the plans are going when it comes to the debate between ADA and the green space. Like, seems pretty to me. I'd say the ADA should come first. That's pretty clear to me. And then I think when it comes to the making the streets the way they are, I might have an edgy take. Maybe since there actually aren't that many cars that park there, and there's a giant 3 or 4 story parking garage next to the mall that's never full to the top. Like, I live in the James, I can see the parking garage, and I've never seen more than a couple cars parked on the top of it during the workday. So, if maybe we consider getting rid of a little bit of the parking on one side of the street to make way for the bike lanes, have a protected barrier, because there are like hundreds of spots that are available either underneath the West Post complex and also next to the mall. Thank you. I think that is, that's all I got.
All right, thank you. We've got Abigail Ernst, followed by an Alyssa who signed up here later.
Abigail Ernst. I'm a resident of Pentagon Ridge condominiums. I just want to start my first point following up on what he said about the ADA compliance. With talk of putting any sort of a footpath behind Pentagon Ridge condominiums on that street, there will be no ADA compliance as far as that hill is concerned. It's hazardous to cars as it currently is. The thought of anybody with any sort of disability, a wheelchair, using that street the same way that any one of us would it's just not accurate. It will not happen. That road is incredibly hazardous for somebody that pulls out of it every single day. I watched an accident almost take place there the other day, and somebody take out the street sign on the corner of Arlington Ridge, actually. So having folks walk up there every day, bicyclists, etc., it's not a matter of if somebody will get hurt, it's a matter of when. So as the county, we have a responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. The next point will just be on environmental, since we've touched on the trees. The word biodiversity was thrown around as we'll plant 1 or 2 different species of trees. That does not take into account the brush that we have behind Arlington Ridge. So when you come down that hill behind the residencies, I walk my dog there every day by the back of that parking lot. There are wildflowers with pollinators. There are bunnies that live in the shrubs. So saying we're going to plant 1 or 2 different species of trees does not take into account what biodiversity really is. And I think the county should know that. Also, putting in semi-mature spaced out trees has a very negative impact on water runoff for the city. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you very much. Got
one programming note. We did have both a sign-in sheet and a speaker sheet going around. If you got confused, please raise your hand and we will make sure you speak.
We sure will.
Sure. Alyssa Arlo. I'm also in Pentagon Ridge. We were promised that we would have a chance to provide detailed feedback during the SPRC process. The process has been really rushed. There was only one of those meetings about the building heights and the shapes. And also the site plan changed significantly for the worse between 1 and 2. And we have not had a chance to provide significant input throughout that process. We have some other planning that's taking place in our neighborhood. People might be familiar with the Melwood site. There's a lot more planning and involvement that took place on that site than there has been for this, which obviously impacts a number of probably thousands more people, if not hundreds more people. We're owners as well. Just because we don't own single family homes, I ask that you treat us equally. And we're asking for the same treatment as the single family homeowners. Many of us have views of the Washington Monument and the much larger Virginia Park. Over at Melwood, my understanding is they protected views of church steeple. So again, asking for the same treatment. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have anyone else in person here?
No, I'm not. Now I'm on.
All right, go ahead.
I'm Tina Muse. I live on the top floor for the past 25 years of the Potomac at RiverHouse, which is much more affected than the James and the Ashley by the construction. Generally am in favor of the development. However, I do want to comment that if we're talking about the green ribbon and community benefits, the most logical location for the primary green ribbon is in the between N1 and N2 going up to South Lynn Street. That is, I've been walking in the neighborhood for 25 years. I have lost almost 40 pounds by walking throughout the neighborhood in all directions, you know, all the way to Alexandria and even to Bethesda I've walked. But I do want to mention that we need to, if you look at, I'm familiar with all the desire lines where everyone walks. The majority of the residents, not just in RiverHouse, but in the Arlington Ridge, we're talking about Horizon House, we're talking about the Cavendish, the Parliament Apartments. They all use that central, where we jokingly call it the death stairs, we're on South Lynn Street. But that's where we really should be funneling as a central point. And that is the most direct access through West Post / Pentagon Road, through the mall. I think we should capitalize on that central point and not treat 15th Street South, which has that, you know, very interesting layout, and they want to preserve the tree canopy as a primary green ribbon route. The primary route should be what, just look, observe, see where everyone's walking every day. That's really all I have to say. I think that's the most logical point as far as the primary green ribbon location. And I have one more thing to say, but I will stop. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Matuzik. I'm going to delegate this to you to manage the online speakers here tonight.
We didn't want his last RiverHouse SPRC meeting to end without hearing him speak.
Thank you. All right, first we have Chris Adams.
I'm here.
Chris, if you're online.
I'm online, just trying to figure out allowing my camera here. Sorry about that.
It may be disabled, so
no,
if you okay,
I'm good. Hi, my name is Chris Adams. I'm a resident on 16th Street, and I wanted to say, very excited about the new open space, very excited about the green ribbon, for a lot of opportunities there. I want to highlight two things. One, footstop what Kadri said about the sidewalks, especially on Kent. The current sidewalk network on Kent is very, I think you can very euphemistically say uneven. Sometimes there's sidewalks, sometimes there's not. I just want to make sure that if we are installing sidewalks in the extended Kent, that those sidewalks connect up into the current sidewalk network, and that too, you know, in the future, as we think about community benefits, we think about maybe extending the sidewalk network to go all the way out to 23rd Street. The second thing I want to talk about is the Hume Hill, the Hume Stairs. One, definitely agree that, you know, it'd be nice to have a nice clean path between the Hume Stairs and the rest of everything else. It's another, you know, one of the previous speakers talked about the desire paths. That's another very common desire path coming straight down off Hume Street, Hume Stairs. The other thing I'll highlight about those, as we start thinking about installing things or installing ADA compliance there, it is the most popular sledding hill in the whole area. People drive from other parts of South Arlington to come sled on that hill. Lots and lots and lots of kids love that hill. So if anything you put there, make sure it doesn't like destroy the hill or install ramps to cut across the hill, because you'll destroy I think a real amenity in the area. So wanted to highlight those two things. It's also a great park during the non-winter years as well. So it's hopefully don't destroy the green space in the hill that's there. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Goodman Schick.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Matt. And sorry to see you go, Matt, but thanks for all your service to the county while you've been here. Appreciate it. So real quick, couple points. Burying power lines on Lynn Street. So I think in a previous version of the sector plan, this was required. I didn't quite see it on a quick look in the sector plan now, but I think burying power lines on the edge of this property, other people have brought this up too, on where the power lines are running behind the proposed townhomes. It would be great to get all these power lines buried on the edge of this property. It would be helpful for maintenance. Right now, we're seeing power and also information lines that are just bogged down by plants that RiverHouse and JBG Smith has not bothered to take care of. Let's take that responsibility out of their hands. Let's bury them, call it a day, maybe even put us on a sidewalk on South Lynn Street, or sorry, Lynn Street. Also, it wasn't quite clear, switching gears here, between N1 and N2, it looked like maybe it was just switchbacks and there was no stairs or some stairs. It would be great to get some clarity on that. I know that this is a complicated area with ADA and we want to make sure everyone has access to it, but surely there's a way to do a ramp plus stairs. And then finally, a lot of people have mentioned this tonight. This is a little bit of a confusing process for folks, especially when we see these presentations and we get the agenda the night before. I know at my work, I can't just send out an agenda the night before and expect people to be prepared. This is a much bigger place than where I work. So it would be great to send out these agendas. These are not extraordinary agendas. This is 3 items tonight. We could have sent this out a week ago, right? I think that would be very helpful, and also what we're going to be presenting on. And another way to make these meetings more useful to the people participating in the meetings, which is all these fantastic people here tonight, please reference the sector plan notes within the slides when you're presenting so that we can follow along and check and see where you're pulling from. Because there's a lot of things that are happening here where I now have to spend 30 minutes to find out where exactly in the sector plan that's referenced. And that's not a productive dialogue.
All right, so, thank you very much. That's the end of your time. Mr. Matuza, who we got next?
Thank you. Shay Winblatt.
Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
If possible, I'd yield another few moments to Godman because I'd like him to finish if he had other points to make.
No, you're good. And thank you, Shay. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a new resident on Arlington Ridge. I just purchased, and I just want to share my thoughts with the committee here. It concerns me that I hear many of my fellow residents saying that the information provided to them was not timely, was not in advance. And I agree that several of the presentation slides today were so full of information that it was nearly impossible to decipher what the speaker meant for us to see. And I don't mean to criticize the speakers, but the information is important. Having just purchased here, my concerns about my value are very high. But my concerns about the lifestyle, the beauty of the place I live is also very high. So I heard a lot of, I know that today was a lot of discussion around the foliage, the plant life, and that's important. But I think overall the site needs a lot more public input. And I hope this committee takes that seriously. I also would affiliate with the speaker who mentioned that the obvious greenway here would be the path on which most of us travel to and from to the amenities of this area, and to put buildings in that way rather than making good use of the flow, I think is misguided. So I hope the consideration is given to how people, the residents here, and I've just arrived, and I can see where people go. So I hope that's given consideration rather than just the ease of construction for development. And I would say those are my concerns and thoughts. So thanks for having the open session.
Thank you.
I'll put it out there just in case, but Doris, do you have any comments? I know you were active in the chat, but
Yes. Yes, thank you. My name is Doris Rippey. I'm a resident at the Pentagon Ridge condos at 1515 South Arlington Ridge. So for those of you who don't know, we're a 32-unit modest community. A number of us, as one of the other residents has said, have chosen to age in place here, and others of us have disabilities. I believe we have some unique needs, which include retaining our parking on 15th Street and being able to safely access our garages. Given the incredible grade of 15th Street, we strongly concur with the idea that the grade is that 15th Street, because of that grade, is not the correct placement for the green ribbon. It would be, my husband is one of those with a disability. He uses a wheelchair, a walker, or a rollator, depending how he's doing. That street would be a death trap for anybody who would try to use any kind of mobility device. And it would be very dangerous for those coming in and out of the garage. Also, if you drive a standard shift like I do, that hill, it's very easy for anybody with a standard to actually start rolling backwards as you're trying to get up that hill in inclement weather. It's also very dangerous. It's not a place for a green ribbon. So we're very excited about the idea that you're thinking about moving the green ribbon over closer to Kent Street. And moving it there would have a lot of community benefits because it would preserve the tree canopy and old growth trees and the biophilic elements that are already on 15th Street. And it would also be closer to the actual real bus stop as opposed to the shadow bus stop that doesn't really exist. So as somebody with a husband with a significant disability, he's been hospitalized 13 times since 2020. Having a place for home health aides to park, it's just a few modest parking spots on the 15th Street, So just moving that green ribbon and allowing us to retain 15th Street as is.
Thank you very much. That's the end of your time tonight.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
next, Bernie Byrne.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The plan schedules of the applicant's March 13th, 2025 revised conceptual landscape plan do not adequately conform to the county board's 2016 monarch pledge. The pledge encourages developing residents to plant milkweed and other native nectar plants to support monarch butterflies and other pollinators. The plants also do not conform to similar recommendations in the county's Forestry and Natural Resources Plan. None of the planting schedules contain common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca. This is the only plant on which monarch butterflies prefer to lay eggs, and which survives well in Arlington's natural areas. Unless changed, this huge project will do little or nothing to help restore the area's declining monarch butterfly populations. I've said this before, and I have to say it again. The project's conceptual plan schedules contain 55 trees and other plants that are not native to Arlington County and its vicinity. It's a very large number. Some are hybrid crosses with non-native species. Some are already known to be invasive. Others may become known as invasive in the future. Many may not feed native pollinators. I've informed the applicant and its landscape architect of those species, but have not received a response. The plan schedules this project lists 78 cultivars. Landscape architects often select cultivars based on their attractiveness to people, not to pollinators. Cultivars often have reduced nutritional benefits or are toxic because of their altered structures or chemical compositions. Many have not been studied well enough to identify those that may be harming pollinators in that regard, or pollinators won't touch them. The applicant should therefore replace all cultivars with native plants, unless the cultivars are more resistant to diseases than are their parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think our last virtual speaker is Nick.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to echo some of the previous comments regarding the lack of safety planning for pedestrians and cyclists if they were to be routed onto the 15th Street South Spur next to the Pentagon Ridge Condo Association, as opposed to farther down on middle of Southland where there's an existing staircase. That's right in the middle of Southland, and the street is relatively straight, allowing sight lines on either way to where the existing crosswalk is. And especially considering the blind corner near where Pentagon Ridge Condo is and the speed at which vehicles travel on that area, it's not a safe place to route vehicle and pedestrian traffic. In addition to, of course, the steepness of the 15th Street South Spur there that Doris articulated so well. Additionally, I just wanted to highlight the fact that there's previous discussion about preserving views and sightlines has been focused on to the south and the east, whereas the views toward Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument, Capitol Dome, etc., those are the valuable views. So existing property owners are trying to ensure that those views are the ones that are preserved to the maximum extent possible. I would certainly ask the county to ensure that they attempt to protect the value of their residents. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I believe that is everyone. So I believe that's the end of this particular meeting. However, we will be having a 5th SPRC meeting next month on July 28th. And during that meeting, we will be covering some big topics. We've got transportation that includes traffic, parking, loading, a lot of things we were kind of hinting at today, but we'll really get the chance to go into those more. Community benefits, construction, and then we'll further evaluate if we need to do any more of these beyond that, if we feel like we've got to a good place or not after the 5th meeting next month, again on July 28th. But I want to thank everyone for being here tonight and having a really, in-depth discussion. I feel like this was a really good faith conversation about this project. And, as we always say, you could have been anywhere tonight and you chose to come here. So thank you very much. And we will see you all back again in July.
Hey, Tony, just to clarify with you in the county, you guys will be posting the material about a week ahead of time, correct? I think that's the way it was this time around. So people should probably just go online and look.
It's 72 hours in advance of the meeting.
Okay.
Yep.